So what we do here at the clinic is we examine the foot. So say for example, you come in here with a foot problem and we say that, you know, the original problem is your foot's leaning in and it's collapsing the arch. Well, everybody's foot leans in at a different angle, and that's why we want to know what the degree of every patient is between the left and the right foot. So this cast is 0, it's absolutely straight. And what I've done is I've made lots of little angles from 45 degrees, 40, 35, 30, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5 and 0, just to show you the angles that we use to determine the amount that the foot leans in. Now, why it's important to discover how much the foot leans in is because someone's foot that leans in only about 10 degrees, the arch will collapse. And the arch will also collapse if someone's foot leans in 45 degrees. So we want to determine how many degrees your foot leans in, because usually, say for example, if you're an adult male, your foot will align 5 degrees every 6 weeks. If you're a growing child about the age of 6 or 7, it will take 5 degrees 6 months to get the ankle straighter. So there's a big difference between children, adult males, adult females, and the angle. So that's why it's important to determine, does your foot lean in, say for example, does your foot lean in 45 degrees, or does it lean in only 15 degrees, you know, something like that. Of course, a straight foot doesn't lean in at all, and that's a 0 degree angle, or 30 degrees. So that's a foot that leans in this much. So we have to be very scientific about it, and instead of just making an insole exactly the shape of your foot, that won't correct the angle of your ankle if it leans in, which is normally the underlying problem of a collapsed arch. So that's why we like to find out, why is the arch flat? Is it because you really truly have a flat foot, which is extremely rare? We might only see a couple of cases a year. Or is it because your foot leans in? If your foot leans in, then we make something exactly the shape of your foot, and we use the angle measurers to determine how many degrees it takes to get the ankle straight. And then we would divide it by 5. So, and considering your age and if you're male or female, it does make a big difference between male and female. Male ligaments are stronger and less flexible, so they'll take about 6 weeks to get 5 degrees. An adult female takes about 6 to 12 weeks to get 5 degrees straight, and a growing child with growth hormone takes up to 6 months. That's young children. Older adult children, say 17, 18, it's a little bit of a different story. We treat them as adults because their growth hormone depletes around those ages significantly. So that's why we think it's very important to measure the angle of the ankle. So we call this hyperpronation. So we hear a lot of the time that somebody has hyperpronation of their feet or of their ankles. So what that means is that their foot leans in. Now we have hypersupination, which is where the foot leans out. If the foot leans out, you'll have a very high arch and almost like bow legs and easy sprained ankles. But most of the time we see flat feet and feet that lean in. So important to determine the angle of the foot leaning in, and then determine how long it will take to align the foot straight. Every 5 degrees determines a new orthotic. So the arch changes, the foot changes phenomenally with the difference in the ankle alignment. So as you straighten the ankle, the arches develop, and you don't just have one arch in the foot, there's 3. So the medial, the lateral, and the forefoot arch. So the forefoot arch, if I show you on camera, against my white coat that's going to be difficult, but the forefoot arch is a little curve underneath the front of your foot here. And then the lateral arch, yeah, you can see the lateral arch better, that's on the outside of the foot. And then the forefoot, the midfoot arch along the medial aspect, the inside aspect of the foot, is normally stronger. So that's why we also address all 3 arches of the foot, because if you were underneath the foot, if you were like a little ant underneath the foot and you were standing here, when you look up, the ceiling should be dome shaped and dome shaped across the way. It's not just one arch through here. So that's why when we start to tilt and align the foot, the whole foot, muscular wise, bony structure wise, changes. Now we get a lot of questions about, can flat feet be fixed? So we have to determine what type of flat foot you have. So if you have a hyperpronated flat foot, of course it can be corrected, and that's the most common one that we see. So as we tilt the foot back to straight and engage all the arches and get the alignment of the ankle back to straight, perfect, no more flat feet. So it's a myth that flat feet cannot be fixed. And actually in adults it's faster to fix flat feet than it is for children. So it's a misconception that flat feet can't be fixed, and once you're an adult you've already grown. So yes, indeed, just like braces for your teeth have already formed, but it doesn't mean that you can't get braces to align your teeth. It's the same with feet. Just because your bones have grown and stopped growing doesn't mean that you can't manipulate the position of the bones. So the bones are held together by ligaments, and the ligaments are the things that determine where your bones sit. The muscles can hold and move your foot, but you couldn't actually hold your foot in a certain position for more than 20 minutes because the muscles will fatigue and you'll start to vibrate and shake, and then you'll have to relax your feet. So it's the ligaments, but you can't hold your foot in place, like you can't push your teeth into position, and you need an orthodontic brace. So that's why we make an orthotic to tilt the foot, keep it in position for 6 weeks to 6 months, and then we change it again to get another 5 degrees corrected. So I hope that makes a little bit more useful information into determining what a flat foot is, what a hyperpronated foot is, what does the angles mean, what does a foot leaning in mean, how that interrupts the arches of the foot, and how it can be corrected.